Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to this new channel called The Inner Spark. It sounds like some kind of oovy groovy, granola chewing topic. Well, it is a little bit, but not fully. Why? Because I want to explain what the inner spark is and why we call this program The Inner Spark. And it's a real reason. The reason is because every human being is endowed with the quality of a spark, an inner spark. And what that means is that we're all made what's called B'Tselem Elokim, in the divine image. And I have to explain what that means. Obviously, because God doesn't have an image. He's not bound by physicality. And therefore, there's many discussions about what it means to be in the divine image. Some talk about the power of free will, the power of conception, of understanding, of awareness. And the mystics have another approach. It's very, very deep that we'll get into. But what I want to start out with is to understand what we want to do with this program. We want to basically allow people to get in contact with their inner spark, their divine aspect. Okay? The Tselem Elokim, the divinity that's inside of them, the holy spark that's inside of them, and to fan that and to bring out their true essence. And that's what we're going to do. We're giving a lot of different classes on many topics, and the goal of all of it is the knowledge and the awareness to become what we really are. And that's a very important concept because it's a misunderstanding of what we're trying to do. We're not trying to go and discover something new. We are recovering what we know and what we are inside. Now, you have to learn information. That's true. But there's a very fascinating teaching the Talmud says. It says, Divrei emes nishmoim, words of truth are heard. Now let's understand that a second. If someone says something to you and it makes sense to you, you go, oh wow, that rings true, that makes sense, I hear it. I don't understand. If you didn't know that before, how do you know it's true? What mechanism are you functioning with that you could recognize truth? And the answer is, that is what's called the neshama, the soul of the human being. The word neshama, a Hebrew word, is from the word nishima. Nishima means breath. And this is what many mystics from different societies and different cultures have understood about the power of breath. And what that means is, as it says in the Torah, it says in the Bible, that God breathed life into humanity. He breathed into his nostrils life. He breathed it. And it says in the Kabbalah, it says in the Sefer Zohar, the mystical pinnacle seminal work of the Kabbalah called the Zohar, it says, whoever blows into something blows in from themselves. If God blew life into humanity, into humankind, then what happens is, that's an aspect of godliness that's inside of us. The neshama. Okay? Now, we'll see as we go along with many of these topics, there are different aspects of the neshama, the soul. Obviously, the soul is one unit, one entity, one concept, whatever you want to talk about, because it's a spiritual idea. It's not physical. It can't be broken into parts. But it manifests in different ways. We're going to, for now, call it the neshama, just the aspect of the breath. There are really 5 different aspects as we will go through it. Now, I want to start with one interesting teaching, which it explains a little bit this idea about how I know what's true, what this inner voice that I have inside myself is. So let's understand. It's a mystical teaching brought in the Talmud. It says that when the child, the fetus is in the mother's womb, what happens is it learns the entire Torah. The Torah is the term for the teachings. In English, we call it the Bible, but we'll explain that more later. It's the idea of the wisdom of God's world. So the baby is in the mother's womb, and it has a candle over its head, and there's an angel, a spiritual force called a malach, which teaches the baby, the fetus, all of the wisdoms of the Torah. And the baby, with this candle above its head, this lamp, this light above its head, sees from one end of the earth to the other. The Talmud says, don't think that's strange, because when you have a dream, you're able to be in one spot and sort of see what's happening in another place. Very strange analogy to dreaming. What does that mean? Anyway, it continues, and then it says that the child learns the whole Torah, all of this wisdom, and then, before it's born, this malach, this spiritual force, hits the baby on the mouth, and it forgets everything it learned. And it comes into this world. Now, that's really weird. What is this? Is this angel some kind of a mobster here? It's smack the kid in the mouth. What's it doing? Why is it hitting the kid in the mouth? The kid forgets everything it learned. And it doesn't make sense. If we want to teach the fetus all of this wisdom, what's the point in teaching it to the fetus and then making it forget? What does this mean? Let's try to understand what this means. There's a light above its head. It sees one end of the earth to the other, and then it gets hit in the mouth and it forgets it. Let's understand. People talk about they have near-death experiences. And many of them are real. I imagine some of them people fabricate, but the concept of a person's soul leaving them and they're not fully dead, that we have that documented in many cases. I know people myself who've had that experience. Great sages have had that experience, actually. And what happens is sometimes when a person is in that experience, they say they see the soul outside of themselves, and all of a sudden they're not bound by time and space. Now, why is that? The reason for that is that the soul is not physical, and therefore it's not bound by the laws of time and space. And therefore, what it means that before the child is born, it has a light above it and it learns all this wisdom and sees from one end of the earth to the other. It means that the soul, the spiritual spark that comes from God, that's breathed life into the person, that divine spark, that aspect, is not connected fully to the body. The marriage of body and soul have not yet happened. And the child now, the soul of the child is not in the body fully, and therefore it is not bound by the laws of time and space. And therefore, like sort of in the dream state, which the dream state, the sages tell us, is 1/60th of sleeping, 1/60th of death, taste of death, but the dreaming could be a certain aspect of prophecy, 1/60th, the tiniest amount of prophecy, because when a person sleeps, what happens is that their soul, certain aspects of their soul, disconnect from their body. And maybe sometime we'll explain how dreams work, but that is the process of dreaming. One of the processes is some of the aspects of the soul have detached from the person. Some parts remain for the person to function. And in certain types of dreams, there may be an experience the soul can send down to the parts that remain, which would be connected with the forces of imagination. A person might see a dream. So anyway, the point is that a dream, therefore, also has the potential for a certain aspect of the soul to somewhat disengage from the body. And therefore, when the child is in the mother's womb, the fetus in the mother's womb, what happens is the soul is not fully connected and it's not limited by the physical reality. And that's what it means, the spiritual force is teaching it. It's this experience where through the various spiritual channels, the fetus is able to learn everything and see everything, one end of the earth to the other. What does it mean then that this spiritual force, this malach, hits the baby on the mouth, trying to hurt the baby? Why the mouth? Why not slap him across the face? Why hit him in the mouth? Why hit him at all? So the sages tell us what it means that the angel hits the person, the baby, in the mouth, means at that moment the child is given the potential and the power of speech. And once it gets the power of speech, it forgets all of the wisdom it learned. Why? Speech is beautiful. Speech is fantastic. Why should that happen? And the answer is because speech shows us that it's the bridge between the spiritual world, the soul world, and the physical world. That's what speech is. Watch how it works. I'm thinking something right now. I'm having these incredible thoughts, these mystical thoughts, but you don't know what I'm thinking. Watch, I'll do it. Wow. You don't know what I'm thinking. You can't experience it. It's in my internal world. Now, when I speak it out, I am taking my internal world and I'm bringing it into the physical reality. That is why speech is the bridge between the inner world and the outer world. And it's so amazing in the biblical Hebrew language, which we learn everything from, and we'll go through this, God willing. The word for speech in Hebrew is davar, the daber. And a davar is also the Hebrew word for a thing, an object. Why is it that speech and an object have the same word? Because that's the power of speech. You're taking a spiritual concept and you're bringing it into reality. Yes, it's more ethereal than the per se the literal object. But what you are doing is you are expressing something into the physical world. That's the word davar, speech, and a thing. And that's really why there's many laws about speech, because you could actually kill or heal with your speech. Person speaks negatively about somebody, he could ruin his career, ruin his life, ruin many things. Speak positive, you affect people in different ways. Your speech is not, oh, I just said words. We view speech as a power, tremendous power. It's a reality. It becomes a reality. So what happens at the moment the child is given the potential for speech, the power of speech, that means the soul is now connected to the body. There's now a marriage. And in a certain way, the soul's power is limited within the body. That means right now, when I have my soul, I am able to experience you through my body. So I'm seeing you right now with my eyes. Actually, I'm not seeing you, you're seeing me. But the idea that I'm able to see things through my physical eyes, but who is seeing it? It's the me, the I, capital I, inside, the soul inside, but I'm only able to experience you through the physical limited reality right now. That's the marriage of body and soul, and that is when the soul becomes, so to speak, trapped in this physical world, that the baby forgets everything it learned. It is now ready to come into this world. And when the child comes into this world, now it goes through a life experience where it has to relearn what it knows. But listen to how amazing this is. What it's relearning is what it already knows. That's why when you hear words of truth, they resonate with you, because you've learned it. It's your inner essence. It's your inner spark. You know, there's a whole discussion today, and it becomes a philosophical and a sociological discussion. You know, I can't personally be someone's judge. I don't know. You know, God's people's judge. We can't judge people in terms of, you know, what they do. We have a court system, and therefore we have to do certain things. There's certain laws. But people talk about if somebody didn't grow up in a good environment, how are they going to know what's right and wrong? And it's a very fair question. It's a real question, because there's truth to that. On the godly scale, I would imagine that when a person is judged in the heavenly court, obviously if he never knew, he didn't have the same advantage somebody did know. That's true. But is there any culpability for a person to do certain heinous things that they may do if they didn't know? And the deeper answer is yes. And the reason is because you have a barometer. You have a power. That's the soul. Now, why don't I hear it? The reason why we don't hear it is because there are a lot of layers that block that inner voice. Let me explain this a little further. What sound would you hear more prominently? A loud sound or a quiet sound? Well, Rabbi, come on, of course, a loud sound. No, not necessarily true. If the loud sound is very far away, I will not hear it as well as a quiet sound that's very close. The power of the soul is much greater. However, we right now experience more profoundly and more acutely the voice that is the voice of our bodies. Now, why is that? Let me explain why that is. The mystics say that when God puts the soul into the body, what happens at that moment? Now, let's imagine. We talk about the soul as being this spark of divinity, so to speak. Chelik HaKamimal is what the sages tell us, a certain aspect of godliness. Now, if that is going to be connected with my body, that sounds very powerful. I should be quite aware of it 24/7. And yet, that's not the way the world is. Most people are acutely aware if they skip a meal, right? You didn't eat lunch. Oh gosh, I'm dying. I gotta eat something. You're very aware of your body. And yet people can go through 80 years of life doing very little spiritual activity. If your soul is so powerful, how come we're not paying attention to our soul, but more to our body? And the deeper question is, when the soul enters the body, why doesn't it just transform us? That we're spiritual lights. And the answer is because the power of the soul is diminished to a certain degree to enter into the body to give us this reality of free will. If the soul's power was in all of its grandeur, you would be transformed. You would be a spiritual light. But then we wouldn't have the purpose of this world. You wouldn't have the ability for a human being to go and to make free will choices and bring out their own divine spark. That's why I'm calling the station and our program The Inner Spark. And it's to be about letting people get in contact with their inner spark. Move away all the blocks that block it and dim the voice. And when we're able to do that, we're able to transform ourselves. And we'll see next time on this type of session. We'll be doing different sessions every day. When we see that when that happens, when you're able to tune in to your inner essence, you're able to bring out what you truly are and actually transform the physical too. And we'll pick this one up on this topic of body and soul next time when we talk about the first creations of humanity, Adam and Eve, and see what was the original relationship of body and soul and where are we going in the future. So welcome to the Inner Spark, and I hope you're going to enjoy this. I know I'm going to have a good time, and we're going to work together to try to learn how to really fan those flames and become what we really are inside. Divine sparks. Thanks, everybody.